Okay, good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everyone's having a great week. The week is starting off in an incredible way. What an incredible time. I mean, wow, what is going on in the world right now? It's unbelievable. It seems like everywhere you turn, there is the shaky ground in which we walk on. Very much what we spoke about yesterday, I think, is very applicable today. And I think that's what we really should be talking about right now. It's a real continuation of yesterday's conversation. And it's a way to look at some of the events happening around the world today and take something in that we can grow from. Whenever you see anything in the world, if your eyes see it, there's lessons from it. This is one of the great teachings of the founder of Hasidism. His name is the Baal Shem Tov. And he had a principle that whenever you saw anything in the world, anything, there's some lesson in it for you. There's a great story where he was once traveling and he saw somebody do something wrong, and he was so upset because he couldn't understand the connection between that person's doing something wrong and his life. And he searched and he searched and he found that, oh, there's a way to look at it for him to grow. Everything that happens, it's not to take us down, it's to build us up. What's going on in the world around us at every given moment is operating at multiple levels. And if we're seeing it, it's because there's a lesson in it for us. So yesterday we spoke about this idea of the image, about what holds us back, what drives us. One of the great blocks and confusion points in our lives is that our visions, our future lookings of ourselves, are what the things that we do. There's a piece of it that is just given to us, right? When weeks ago we delved into this concept called neuroplasticity, and we spoke about how every day we're being exposed to something, and that exposure is impacting our brain. That's why people go into the professions or the businesses of family members. That's why people tend to marry people that look like their family. Like that's why we do things that seem similar to the people around us. That's why we incline towards goals that people in our community have. That's why we incline towards wearing things that people around us wear. It's not because like we were all programmed the same way and we ended up in the same place. It's because we see each other. And every time you see somebody, it forms neural connections. And that drives you. So if you live in a community where one thing is being celebrated, you naturally want that thing more. You naturally push your children to it. Why is that? It's because it's just what we're exposed to. And if you'd move to a different community with different goals, all of a sudden, after some time, you were just naturally inclined to different things. It wouldn't mean you would change completely, because your brain doesn't work, though. It's not black and white, but you would just evolve over it. But that means that lots of what we're doing has been given to us. It's been implanted in us. It's that teacher that you like, that you wanted to impress, that put in you the love for this, which may be why you are what you are. It's that group that thought that this was important. I always speak about it when I used to teach in business school. I used to say, like, growing up, like, everybody was either like a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant. All my friends, unless you had a family business, all my friends. And if you were very religious, you were a rabbi. But that was it. Those are your options: doctor, lawyer, accountant. You teach today, like, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Like, what happened? Is it like the people now have souls that are more entrepreneurial than they did when they were younger? Everyone was more legal? No. Because you just keep on, in the old days, like, you looked around and said, who was successful? And there was like a couple of jobs that came your way. And today you look at every magazine, it's some, person that like starts a company, and that's the new thing. But that's dangerous, because that means that we can be living lives that are not really ours. We can be doing things without really asking, like, what can I bring to this world? What's unique about me? And then somebody does what they love, and like they really make it, and everybody sort of flows to that thing. And even within an industry, there's different things that you could be doing. And the more we're in touch with who we are, the more we introspect, the more we're thoughtful, the more we look at the world from a place of value, what I can give versus what I can get, the more we recognize that we're here on a mission, that we're all unique, and that our value doesn't come from what people say it does. It comes from the fact that we come from a piece of God. The more that becomes how we start thinking, the more we slowly and normally, with common sense, incline towards doing things that are the expressions of who we are, regardless of what anyone else says. And if we don't think this way, we can really do a lot of things and really not feel very fulfilled. This image thing is a big deal. This image thing could take you your whole life to figure out. This image could enable us to really miss some of the joy of life. Could drive our family and kids insane. But the more you're aware of it, and the more we're just able to split the difference, and just know we're doing this for the image. Just know we're doing this because we want to be socially accepted. Before we even change it, the more we start to really get underneath who we are, the more power we have to say, I want to do it because I think this is right, regardless of whether everybody comes with me or not. The more we start to find that piece of ourselves that's already in there that says, this is who I am. Now, how do you do it? There's a lot of ways, but I want to talk about one today. I think over here I told you the story about the shell, the seed. I don't remember. The story of a friend of mine when this thing first started, when I was a little bit going through a lot and all the companies are calling. It was a hard few weeks in the beginning. And a friend said, you forgot about the seed. It was an excerpt from a book called The Nesiva Shalom. It was one of the most inspiring Jewish books I've ever read. It was actually, when I was young, I was already reading it. When I young, I mean in post high school, in college. And there's a concept in there that the rabbi speaks about a seed. He speaks about if you take a seed and place it into your palm, you would have something. It'd be really small, but it'd be something. If you take that seed and place it into the ground, and you were looking at the seed, the shell would slowly fall away. Once the seed goes into the ground, so to speak, the shell falls away. At the moment in which the shell falls away, if you were looking at the seed, you would say, I have less. I had a seed. It wasn't much, but it was something. But now I have nothing. Because now you have the seed. Because the shell fell away. He said, but if you would look a little closer, if you'd be a little bit more broader in your thinking, you would realize that, wait, once the shell falls away, what is nestled in that seed is a life force. It's an energy. That energy has the potential to build not a seed, but to build a tree and fruit and thousands of seeds. So at the moment when the shell falls away, do you have less or do you have more? Well, you have less shell, but you now have the potential for everything. In many ways, that's how we see the world. We look at the world and we look at circumstances. We look at people. We look at ourselves. And sometimes we just see the shell. Just the shell. We see the outer world. We see the things that we have that we can touch and feel and sense. We judge things by what something was. We look at people and we judge them based on how they look. If they look like me. If they fit into my demographic. If they're my race or color or gender or whatever it is, or my religion. We look at people and we immediately get stuck on the shell. And that shell can be how somebody looks. The shell can be what someone does for a living. The shell can be what size home a person lives in. The shell can be how the person dresses. The shell could be how the world operates. But when our vision stops at the shell, it's fairly myopic. And you'll see people do this all the time. They'll be treating each other like shells. And until your shell looks like my shell, or until I can change my shell to make it look like everyone else's shell, then apparently I have no other value. Then there are some people that see shells, and when they look at a shell, all they see is the life force that is within it. All they see is the incredible potential that is being held back by the shell. The shell is actually holding back the energy, the opportunity, the real essence of who that thing is. When that shell starts to shake, it's not the end, it's only the beginning. And there are people like this. There are teachers that see that kid getting in trouble and goes, that kid's got a chance because, okay, he can't sit, but look at the creativity. And the principal or the teacher or whatever the cast of characters or whatever it is. Sometimes the principal sees it, sometimes the teacher sees it, sometimes the parent sees it. It depends on the principal, the teacher, and the parent. And the kid. Whatever the mix is, there's always one, sometimes there's one party that goes, get him out. And one party goes, do you understand how powerful the kid can be? What's the difference? Can the kid be powerful or can he? Well, it depends on the perspective. Are we living in a world that's shaking and like, can you believe the good old days? Or are we living in a world that's shaking and maybe there's opportunity that we can look at right now? I hope everybody's safe and healthy. And we'll just be safe, safe, safe. When you see people, are you looking for their energy? Are you looking for their spirituality? Are you looking for their image of God, which everybody has? Or are you looking for their shell? The more we train our eyes to search for the life force that is within something, the more we train our eyes to see possibility. And by the way, in my humble opinion, that very much is the distinguishing factor of really what faith is supposed to take people to. Faith is not just about, hey, I believe there's an invisible man in the sky and he's going to hook me up with goodies if I just do his work. I mean, come on. There is a powerful divine energy in this world. But maybe faith is much deeper. Maybe faith is that, well, if there's divineness in me, that means that there's divineness in you. And I got to find it in you. And I got to find this in the world. And I got to look out into the world and find it. My eyes have to become X-ray vision goggles that sees energy. That can hear someone yelling and look into those words and see brokenness and insecurity and not malice and evil. There are people like this. And there are people on the other side. They could be sitting with loved ones and the person could say one thing and like, it's like World War III. And you're like, what? And the person's like the kid or the parent or the whatever the family member is. Do you see what she said? And you're like, what? She didn't even mean that. And then on the flip side, you can see somebody looking at somebody who is broken, screaming and just seeing the brokenness and not the malice. Same person, different perspective. It's life. It's the schema. If we haven't done it yet, we'll do it. It's all perspective. Life is all perspective. And here's the pump fake. Here's where it's non-common sense. We would think that in order to achieve our visions, we have to get better at seeing ourselves. And a part of that is true, which is what we're working on together. But here's the thing. that the greatest way to see yourself is to train your eyes to see others. You have eyes, and those eyes are either very physical eyes or those eyes are spiritual eyes. But when you spend your whole time focusing on yourself, it's inherently flawed. When you spend time focusing on others, seeing the life force, seeing the soul, seeing the potential in others, you actually train your eyes to see deeper. You train your eyes to see things beyond the shell. And those eyes that you are now training to see in others belong to you. So when you look in the mirror, you just see yourself differently. The way you change your perspective on yourself is when you do it on other people. How else could it be? You know that God didn't create a world where the selfish one wins. Like, we know that. Like, we know that God's world is not like, hey, why don't you close yourself off for the rest of your life and focus on yourself and you're going to achieve full expression. We know that God created this world imperfect so that we can walk in and see perfection and fight for perfection. And in the process of fighting for perfection, start to train ourselves to see it in ourselves. Because unless we start to see beneath the surface, our brains are going to send us the signals, always telling us, fix the shell. And then you're going to wake up. Everyone has this moment at some point. Everybody to some level has a moment where they wake up and the shell is totally fine, but there's something missing. Everybody has a moment where they're sitting at work and they're making enough money and they have enough respect and they got enough, coffee in the kitchen and their seat is comfortable enough. And they're sitting around and everything should be right with the world and they're like, something's missing. People have those moments where they look at their home and their lives and their block and they're like, what's missing? What's missing is that the shell doesn't give us the feeling of fulfillment. And unless we are, like we said 3 shows ago, fully engrossed in what we're doing and it's an autotelic experience, and we allow ourselves to get lost in what we're doing. But when I mean get lost in what we're doing, I'm not just talking about seeing how I can get better at it. I'm talking about getting to a place where there's a certain purpose, where I want to extract something deep out of it. I want to be able to bring it to a purpose, a reason. I want to give purpose to my life. And no matter what I'm doing, I want to keep on digging to the core of it. So I can be sitting around reading a book. But I'm trying to understand the book. I'm trying to understand the words. I'm trying to bring out the potential that's behind the shell of those words. This may sound like crazy, but this idea of engaging in this world with a certain level of enthusiasm, because we're constantly trying to get underneath it, is how some people could be satisfied with so little, and some people can be dissatisfied with so much. But it begins by training ourselves to see the difference. What's my image? What's who I am? What am I taking from the world? What am I giving to the world? What am I waiting for someone to pat me on the back versus what do I want to add to more people? There's a huge difference between how do I get more people to look at me versus how do I give value to more people? They look like they're right next to each other. They're totally different. There's difference between the people in my lives, the things that I see. Am I looking for what's on the inside, or am I looking and am I stopping at the shell? And the more we train ourselves to see behind the shells of people, of things that we buy, of things that we do for a living, of just questioning, of just delving, not whether we get the right answers. It's the process that makes us us. The more we start to see the depths in others, and then we see it in ourselves. the more we create societies where the people around us are just like us. We treat them with the same level of respect that we ask of ourselves. And then it brings out the best in people. All right, we'll keep this up. We got to talk about schema this week. We got a lot more to go. We're going to start to really move down the world of perspective this week and show how what we see really is based on our perspective. Until then, try it today. Slow down on one person. It doesn't have to be physically in front of you. Slow down on one person that you see on a screen or in person, and just try today to see the potential in that person. Train our eyes to be more spiritual. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have an awesome, awesome day. And with God's help, I just cannot wait to hopefully see you again tomorrow. Thanks so much.